Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John, and I hope you are having a phenomenal day today. And I'm so glad to be a part of it. Now, before I dive into this episode, I want to share a quote with you that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, sometimes the most important word you can learn is no. And I couldn't agree more. Those words of wisdom have come to us from the one and only award-winning actress, Halle. Now, in this episode, we are diving into a fabulous conversation with Rebecca Muriuki. She's a physician, a coach, a real estate investor, and she's sharing her inspiring journey from burnout to building a short-term rental business that actually fuels her purpose. We dive into how she took her first steps, how she balances life today, and the mindset shifts that helped her reclaim her time and energy. If you've ever felt stretched thin, but know there's still more for you, let me tell you, this episode is going to speak to your soul. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Rebecca. So today we are joined by Rebecca Muriuki, and I am so excited to have this discussion with you, Rebecca, about how you are investing literally halfway around the world. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Stacey, for having me. It's such an honor to be on the STR Sisterhood podcast, which I've literally listened to since starting my short-term rental journey, and to be part of the online community as well.
Amazing. Amazing. One of my favorite things is that I'd have the opportunity through this community to meet people like you from, all different areas of the globe. First of all, let's just have you start off by sharing with our audience a little bit about who you are and where you live.
Yes. So I call myself an African citizen. I am a corporate exit strategist. I am an ex-corporate girly. I left the Big Four audit firm as a director, really pursue a freedom-first life aligned with my values and income that reflects that. And that is how I ventured into the world of short-term rentals. And that is what I help women do now as well. Really build income streams that don't require groundbreaking business ideas, and creative short-term rental strategies are one of those income streams I support them with. I am in Nairobi right now, but I grew up in South Africa. And when I decided to go into short-term rentals, I decided not to start in my backyard, which is typically the advice that most people are given when they start in short-term rentals. And so I started in Cape Town, which is where I studied. Incidentally, I went to university there. And that's where I started building my short-term rental portfolio.
Amazing. Amazing. I have so many questions just about that. In fact, a couple of my team members actually live in South Africa. And I have heard the stories of how drop dead gorgeous Cape Town is. And sometimes they will, we'll be on Zoom calls and we'll be, Casey, you have to see this view right now. Is this not amazing? So what a perfect spot, right? To start your short-term rental journey. I'm curious, from a geographical perspective, I feel like I need to break out my globe and go back to 7th grade social studies, because I don't know that off the top of my head. What is the distance between Nairobi and South Africa?
Yeah, so it's just over, I would say 3,000 miles. So Nairobi is literally on the equator in the middle of the world. And then Cape Town is literally like the last point of habitation in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's really far.
Amazing. And so talk to me a little bit about what made you inspired to even get into short-term rentals. How did that journey begin for you?
Yeah, so I'm sure you will resonate, because I know you also have, a corporate story, and many other women who listen to this. But I just started to have this sense of unease within me. I knew when back in COVID, everyone had a COVID story. When I, was with kids, and at the time I had twins, I knew that I didn't want to like be in corporate for the rest of my life until I'm 65 and then start living my life. I knew that I wanted to carve a different path to the traditional path of success, climbing up the corporate ladder. And so I started preparing my way out back then, like 5 years ago. But at the time, the only option that I could see and that was being taught a lot was build a business. So that's what I did. I started building a business, tried different business ventures, tried different forms of service modeling. I did business coaching. I had run, I had just before COVID, I had closed a fashion boutique. And so I thought, okay, I have some business knowledge. Maybe this is something that I could help women with, but it just wasn't it. And then I really found my passion in leadership coaching, particularly for women of color. And at the time, I was, my path to director was fast tracked, but it's also because of the mindset work that I do, which is also a part of the body of work I help my clients right now. And so I thought, okay, this looks like a good path to my exit plan. And so I just continued doing it, built a really successful leadership coaching business. And then one day, out of nowhere, I went from being the top performer in the firm that I worked with to getting a low performance review. And that was a huge shocker. Like within 6 months, falling out with management, and there was a lot of behind the scenes going on. And so I realized for me it was such like a shock to my system, but it was also a wake-up call that my corporate income is not secure. Even if I have a permanent contract with my employer, it's not secure. And at the time I had taken down my first short-term rental property. And when I got that low performance rating, which I didn't agree with, I was like, okay, Rebecca, it's time to put your foot on the gas and get this short-term rental income stream running. Because at the time I was still running my coaching business, but it still required a lot of time. And I felt like even if I left my corporate job, I was just going to go into another hustle, which I didn't want. I wanted freedom. I wanted to be able to pick my kids from school, go to all the soccer events, be at the swimming galas, not have to cancel date nights because I was busy working on my business. And so I really wanted to build the short-term rental business side. And not to say that it's a passive income stream, by no means is it, but I just feel like it gives so much more freedom and flexibility than traditional business models. So that's really how I got into short-term rentals. And then 2 weeks later, after getting that shock low performance review, I submitted my resignation letter. And I was like, I am not going to be in a place where my pay is going to be dictated. Obviously, when you get a low performance, it has knock-on effects on bonus income, on your ability to get a pay raise in the next pay cycle. And I could see where things were going and what they were kind of trying to force down my throat. And I didn't want to do that. But I had the ability to put in my resignation letter because I had already started to build this income stream in short-term rentals. So yeah, it's a, I guess, bittersweet ending, but the beautiful start of what I do now and how I empower women.
What a story. What a story. And I'm curious, what I took away from that is you are very much like me. I think in our original email exchange, I'm like, wow, she is my sister halfway around the world because we are cut from the same cloth, right? We focus on business and mindset and understand how important it is for the two of them to go together if we truly want to have paychecks fueled by our passions, right? So I just want to say kudos to you. And who knew you had a sister in Ohio, and who knew I had a sister in Nairobi, right? I'm curious, have you always been a visionary? Because when I listen to you talk, I can understand that you can see the future now. Like, obviously, you don't have a crystal ball or magic fairy dust, but you are a visionary like I am, where you have the ability to see, okay, this this could potentially cause risk down the road, or this could be an opportunity for me down the road. And it sounds like you're also like me, where you're a hybrid visionary and integrator. I'm curious, have you always been aware of that? Did you get exposed to being a visionary from someone else? Where did that come from?
That's such an interesting question and such a good question, because no one has ever asked me this. But now when I reflect on what I've just shared, I feel like I didn't realize that I was applying sort of that visionary mindset in making decisions. And even now, I still do it, but I don't realize that it's because of that visionary sort of thinking. So I don't always see myself as that big picture thinker, particularly when it comes to strategy, but when it comes to the big ticket decisions in my life, especially those that have a knock-on effect on how my values are going to be affected by the decisions I make and the impact on my family and the people that I hold dearest to my heart. I think I am so much more careful in thinking through like how this narrative, how this story is going to play out, and also leaning on to how I have seen it play out in other people's lives. So when you get to director level, you have the advantage of spending more time with executives and CEOs, for example. And I could see the kind of lives that they were living versus the highlight reels on LinkedIn. And I was like, no, I don't want to be at home after bedtime and have to make excuses to my kids every single day for 4 days in a row, you know? So, and it's so interesting you asked that, because I also mentioned how I had a fashion boutique, and literally in February of 2020, I decided to shut down that business. It was actually doing well, but because it wasn't aligned with my values, it was very logistics heavy, very operational heavy. I decided to just shut it down. I was just about to have my twins. And so I was like, you know what? I just cannot do this. And now looking back, I'm thinking that was such a good decision, because I don't know what would have happened to it, you know, post-COVID. So it's such an interesting thing how sometimes when you look back, hindsight, you realize some of the skill sets you don't actually realize you have. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it, you know, when something comes natural or organic, it can be difficult for, you know, an individual to see it as a skill set. For you, it's just like, what do you mean? This is the way I roll, right? This is the way I've been brought up, or, you know, even in my professional career, right? So I think it's important to highlight that, because so many people might be watching or listening and going, wow, how did she even know to start building her way out of her corporate role? How did she even know she wanted that? So another thing that I want to ask you about, you just mentioned the fashion boutique you recognized wasn't aligned with your values. Yeah, I have my own set of core values that I operate by in my business. And when I tell that to people, a lot of times I get a look like, okay, that's really weird, Stacey. You have your own business, but you operate by your core values. Like, what do you mean by that? Talk to me about how you discovered what your values were and how those have played out in your short-term rental business.
Oh, yes. I think I really started to accept my values when I started to reflect on what were the things that totally pissed me off about my corporate job, things that annoyed me. And one of the biggest things was getting home late, not being with my kids for bedtime, not being able to travel, always having to ask permission to go and leave. Like, I hated doing that. I was like, why can't I just go and then come back and do my work, you know? And so that, for me, I know it's not, I guess it's a negative connotation, but it really helped me figure out what were the things that were most important to me, and also how I wanted to spend my time, right? When you ask yourself that question, if there were no constraints in money, in income, how would you want to be spending every day of your life on this earth? You'll realize that you'll be able to unearth what those values are so much faster than if you try and apply like a sort of textbook approach to defining your values. And so for me, it was very clear when I left my corporate job that I wasn't going to replace it with an income stream that, again, didn't allow me to travel, to spend time and prioritize my family and never miss a school event, to have fun while doing it, you know? And yeah, so family, fun, freedom, yeah, and have the freedom. Like, I really wanted to be able to craft my own schedule. Another thing I hated, especially when I was a director, I didn't like people would just invite you, like people would just dump meeting events on your calendar. And I mean, sometimes you had the power to say no, but if your boss told you like 7 p.m. and told you there's a board meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m., that meant I couldn't do the school drop. And I didn't want a life like that again. I wanted a life where I didn't have to have any meetings on Mondays if I didn't want. So I think those were the sort of catalysts that made me accept and embrace my values and then find how I wanted to run my businesses and my income streams going forward in alignment with them.
So good. So good. It gives me goosebumps. I love it. The next thing I want to ask you is about your mindset when you put in that resignation letter. I know for me, when I left the corporate world, I gave a 6-month lead time. You know, I served on a leadership team of a global consulting organization, and I really felt like, okay, if I give them 2 weeks notice or even 4 weeks notice, that's not giving them enough runway for me to really onboard someone else in my role. So what I found was, while I was still in my corporate job, knowing I was going to leave, my mindset was fine. Like it was exciting about my next chapter. And when I left, for the first few weeks, I found myself, again, kind of in a honeymoon phase, right? And I had done all the things, like saved up, you know, my funds. So I had a cushion of 6 months worth of income. I had revenue streams coming in that replaced my corporate salary. And yet I found myself starting to have glimpses of, oh my gosh, what have I done? I've just taken away a steady paycheck. And that can be a very scary thing. Now, for me, again, I'm much like you. I believe in the power of mindset and actually doing work on our mindset. And so I recognize that and I could course correct. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing how you felt when you left the corporate role, what your mindset was like, and if you ever had some of those, oh my gosh, moments.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I feel like a lot of ex-corporate women just want to talk about the beautiful side of life after a corporate exit. And I had those fears too. I actually had a major identity crisis after leaving my corporate job. I was in this firm for 8 years. I rose up the ladder, manager, senior manager. I was a director leading a team of 20 people. I was respected. I had the title, you know, I would walk in rooms and everyone would want to talk to me, share their contacts. And so there was a lot of external validation of who I was. And it took me leaving my corporate job to realize that my worth was tied to my paycheck. And that was such an interesting realization, because even though I was doing the mindset work, you know, I'm a big believer of, you know, people like Bob Proctor. I've done some of his courses thinking into the results. I was shocked that I was going through that moment. And then I realized it's actually normal, because that has been my reality for 12 years. I spent over a decade in corporate. And so now I had to rewrite the script of who I am, of where I take my values from, literally do the basics of mindset work like affirmations. I also signed up for therapy to help me understand the root cause of where this need for external validation was coming from and how to sort of reframe it every time it came up. And I think it's such an important conversation to have because, when you're in corporate, you're surrounded by so many people. There's people all around you. There's energy that you can tap into. And then when you go on your own, you literally are on your own. Like this office, this is my home office. I'm literally in this office, holed up by myself for literally 6 to 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday. And it can be so lonely. And even besides the financial bit, which also, I wouldn't say it was scary for me because thankfully I had built relationships in my corporate job and I got some corporate consulting contracts that kept me going. But that uncertainty can be very unsettling. And first of all, just acknowledging it's normal is part of, rebuilding your identity and just raising your sort of energetic calibration to the woman who is self-sourced. I think it's just part of the journey. Well, what do you think, Stacey?
Hey girl, if you've ever thought about taking back control from Airbnb, you're not alone. And Lodgify is the tool to do it. Did you know that with Lodgify, you can create your own stunning direct booking website, manage everything from guest communication to payments all in one place, and finally say goodbye to the high OTA fees? Now, here's the best part. STR Sisterhood listeners, you get 20% off all yearly plans, plus free personalized onboarding that's worth over $3,000. Just use code STRSH20 and start building your business your way. Yeah, absolutely. And much like you, I was very much tied to external validation. And I relied quite candidly on other people to give me confidence. So for me, that stemmed from not my corporate life, but actually my own mom. Like for years, and I told this story to some folks at my Live Big beach retreats, but for years, well, first of all, let me say my mom was like the most amazing person on the planet. Like she was so special and the best mom ever. Like she was amazing. And she died of breast cancer. And that was about 20 years ago. And my mom was the type of mom that when I came home from elementary school, like she would have the warm chocolate chip cookies on the kitchen table. And she would want to take me to the park and she would, take me and turn on music and teach me how to do ballroom dancing. Like she did all the things that an awesome mom would. And for years after she died, I felt as though I didn't level up as a mom. I was comparing myself to her. And I also recognized that when she was alive, she was my source of confidence as a mom. I would call her every day. She would give me advice. She would, give me stories and how to handle certain things with the kids. And that's where my confidence as a mom was generated from. It was generated from someone else. And when she died, not only did I lose that external source of confidence, but I also then started comparing myself to her and thinking, I'm passionate about business and I don't like to make homemade chocolate chip cookies. I would much rather just pull out the Toll House tub and grab a spoon, And for years, I struggled with that. And I have come to realize that has played out in so many areas of my life where I was relying on someone else to give me validation, to give me confidence. And once I learned to live my life from the inside out and recognize that when I have internal abundance, the external abundance is a natural byproduct of it. And so it is a lifelong journey. I still catch myself sometimes in a moment where I'm like, oh, wait a minute, Stacey. No, you're not going there. And so I have to catch myself even to this day, not comparing myself to other people. So I couldn't agree more about the power of operating from within and how incredibly freeing it can be when you learn how to do that. I'm totally on the soapbox now.
But now I feel we're more like sisters because my mom also passed away, but I was 8. And so through this process of therapy, I realized that I've always been looking for a replacement for someone else to validate me, just like you, because that part of that nurturing was missing. And so I just replaced it with external things. So in my schooling career, it was getting the A grades so I could be praised. Then it was the same thing in university. Then it was the same thing in corporate, getting the promotion so I could get that praise. And so it just never really ends until, like you're saying, you build your financial abundance and capacity to hold wealth from within so that the external reality reflects what's inside. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'm curious with the folks that you are working with now. Talk to us a little bit how you are supporting women and helping them tap into the world of short-term rentals and the tremendous benefits that it offers. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes. So a lot of the work that I do right now, after it's been a year since I left corporate. So after experimenting and testing these short-term rental income strategies, particularly using the remote model, I've realized that most women get stuck because of the mindset. It's actually not the lack of capital. It's not that, the paycheck or anything like that, or the lack of opportunities. It's actually mindset. And a lot of times it's the fear. It's what if I make a mistake? Sometimes that high achiever syndrome. What if this doesn't work out? And so nowadays I've completely restructured the way I support these women. And that's the first thing we do. Really help them calibrate their frequency, their mindset to that of a short-term rental investor and start to get comfortable with the uncertainties. Like, what if this doesn't work? And I'm like, yeah, there's a chance it couldn't work, but you also have the power to refine until it works, And so these are some of the sort of principles I'm bringing in. I'm also in the process of getting certified as a human design coach and helping them understand. So human design is like a personality typing system that helps you really understand your potential and how you're best meant to build income streams, how your energy is best meant to best be utilized to make an income. So I'm bringing that in because I've also realized that no one size fits all. So some women are going to be completely hands-off. They just want to invest. Like I think you were doing something similar the other day. You had an opportunity, I think it was Hocking Hills. So some women are just going to want to bring their money to Stacy and be like, you go and do all the operations. I just want a return on my investment. Other women like me and you are going to want to host people and have conversations and do all those things that, people do in hospitality. Other women are just going to want to hire a property manager, but have the real estate ownership, and then just have someone else run the business for them. And there's all trade-offs in all of these sort of models. No one size fits all. And so I'm really helping these women, first of all, get over the mindset hurdles, but then also build a short-term rental income stream that is aligned to their personality, to their values, well understanding the trade-offs and the benefits and which one is best fit for them.
I love that. And that is absolutely brilliant. I know for the folks in my sphere and each and every week inside of my accelerator program, we are talking not only about the day-to-day operations and the business of short-term rentals, but tapping into that mindset piece. Because I don't know about you, but in my life, the mindset work never stops. It's not like you flip a switch one day and all of a sudden you're, quote, cured, right? It is a continuous journey. And I love that you're helping people build portfolios based on their own goals and where they are from a mindset perspective. I think that's phenomenal. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also from my learning experience, because when I got into short-term rentals, I learned from a mentor and I'm so thankful to him, but I just got lucky. I just got lucky that the model he was teaching was a model that I wanted to use. And some people won't be as lucky, And so I think it's just giving women also freedom to build this in a way that's in alignment to them, and knowing that, there's no right way, but then also having the foundations of the mindset piece. Because no matter what model you choose, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be setbacks, there are going to be failures, and you have to be ready to overcome them. And like you said, it's like new level, new devil. You get to this point, there's a new challenge waiting for you. It's like a game. Like you get to this level, there's a new challenge. It gets harder and harder and harder, but you also get stronger and stronger and stronger to be able to withstand, overcome, and be victorious over those challenges.
New level, new devil. I am going to borrow that from you, Rebecca, because that is so true. I always talk about at every level you have your next glass ceiling, right? And so again, like in my Live Big book and at my Live Big beach retreats, we're working on our next level me, right? And that next level me is going to get to the next level. And then guess what? There's a next level to get to. And then guess what? There's a next level to get to, right? So I love the new level, new double. That explains it so much easier. I think that's fabulous. That's fabulous. I'm curious, with the folks that you work with, what do you feel like, if you looked at them as a collective, what do you feel like is the thing that they struggle with the most as they are entering the short-term rental space?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's the realization, because a lot of these women want freedom. So they're very excited that, now I get to build this thing that's really mine and I'm out with corporate. But I think it's the realization that it's not easy. It's not easy, and you've got to build that inner strength as well as the technical side to be able to make this work. And so I think a lot of people come in thinking this is going to work, like, they think the success rates are high, but realistically they're not. There are a lot of people who are closing short-term rentals 2 months, 3 months, 6 months after they start. And so I think that realization does then it get met with sort of that fear of failure, because they're typically high achieving, they've always gotten promoted, always gotten the acknowledgement. And so sometimes it then also comes with this sort of awakening that, oh my goodness, okay, this might take a year, before I start reaping the returns. This might take 6 months. And so that's why I also help them create a solid corporate exit plan, so that they are not suffocating this income stream and being like, this has got to work, and really just allowing the operations, allowing their technical capabilities to build so that the short-term rental income stream can start making money, but not feeling under pressure that it's got to make money from day one, because there's so many unforeseen things that happen in short-term rentals. Like, for example, one of my properties, after the property was transferred and we signed all the legal documents, the owner he was an occupant in the property, and he refused to vacate. And for 6 months, like, how do you forecast that? How do you project that? Right. And so for 6 months, he paid occupational rent, but it was a third of the potential income I was going to get on the short-term rental. And so these are some of the sort of unforeseen things you've got to prepare for. But if I only was relying on my short-term rental income, like, it would have been a problem. And would create stress, a lot of friction. Maybe I would have even given up and closed shop and being like, I'm going back to corporate, So it's also really helping them just ideate around other ways and make money as they sort of give this short-term rental business the patience it deserves to build and pick up and create that, freedom-based income stream they're looking for.
That's so good. And I can't imagine having to evict a seller of a property. You're right. Nobody would ever imagine that would happen. So interesting. And the other thing I'm curious about, Rebecca, is, as people are building out this plan, this exit strategy to leave corporate, for me, I knew a year in advance that that's what I was working towards. And I, really, really was focused for a good 6 months before I gave my notice, and then another 6 months before I ultimately left. So I had made a decision and had an executional plan that was about 12 months long. For the women that you're working with, is there a common time frame when they start working with you that they're typically turning in their resignation letters, or is it just merely on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, so my model, tells them that it's possible. So my model is built around 6 to 12 months. Like within 6 to 12 months, you could be out of your corporate job. But some women come in and are like, you know what, I have a promotion coming up and I've been told it's a matter of 12 to 18 months. And then we build their exit plan around that. Some other women are like, you know what, I actually don't want to leave my corporate job. I just want to build this and see what's possible and have this as an option. So it really differs between different women. But with the model that I have built, like 6 to 12 months is absolutely possible. But, you do have to also put in the extra work, right? It's not easy breezy on your way out. You do have to. So the shorter time you want to leave your corporate exit job, like the more work you're going to have to put in and the faster you're going to have to do this and make big decisions really fast. That can also cause friction depending on, your mind, your natural mental disposition and how much sort of that mindset work you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I always chuckle, I don't know about you, when I see the internet ads that say, learn how to invest in short-term rentals and create passive income or passive wealth. And I'm thinking, I don't know who you're talking to, but that is not reality. Okay. I do think that is a common myth that, people, unless you have a property manager, and then it is passive, right? But if you are actively involved in hosting or running a hosting business or managing a property, it's far from passive. Far from passive.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with a property manager, you still have to understand what's going on. I have so many stories. I had a property manager manage my properties because I do it remotely, and now I'm building my team internally. And one of our properties got delisted from Airbnb because the property manager didn't manage the process properly. And I only found out like after a month when, that turnaround time sort of get it reviewed and appealed had already passed. So I think it's also a myth or misconception to think that just because you have a property manager, everything is going to work out. You still do have to have a pulse on them, and even more so if you hire them on a commission basis because, they're not employed by you. And sometimes they might do things that are not necessarily in your best interest or aligned with your interests.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also, want to say that hiring a property manager, first of all, I am a licensed property manager. When I started, I hired a property manager and I very quickly realized whoa, we are very far apart in expectations for quality, for cleanliness, for care to my property. And just because your property manager has a big portfolio does not mean that they are a right fit for you. So making sure that you are interviewing your property manager and understanding the nitty gritty details of how they're going to support your investment, I think is critically important and oftentimes overlooked because there are lots of folks that look at size of property manager and assume that they're good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like we could have a whole conversation around this. So many misconceptions around it. But I mean, it's a model that works, but sometimes you are going to have to go through a few property managers before you get a Stacy, with your sort of 5-star sort of experience that you give your clients and that sort of level of standards. It's not just straightforward. Not all property managers are equal, for sure.
Yeah. Just like not all cleaners are equal. That could be a whole conversation in and of itself. Rebecca, I want to ask you, if someone were listening or watching today and they were maybe feeling stuck in their 9 to 5 and maybe looking for a path out, what's the first small step you'd encourage her to take right now?
Yeah, so I would definitely put myself in rooms where you can see evidence that it's possible. Mm-hmm. Because environment has a big impact on your conditioning, which has a big impact on your thoughts, your belief system, the actions you take. Like all your actions just come from your thoughts, your belief system, and your emotional state. Mm-hmm. And it's very heavily influenced by your environment. So I would definitely put myself in rooms, and it might sound cliche, maybe they've heard this before, but I would put myself in rooms where I can see other women who've done it. Plug into podcasts like yours, Stacey, where I know you've interviewed a number of women who've left their corporate jobs to pursue this life of freedom, and really start to think differently about your earning capacity and your ability to create income that is not tied to a paycheck. I would say that's the first place because that's really frictionless, right? Podcasts are free, public podcasts. Online communities are free. There's the short-term rental sisterhood. And that's where you can really start and connect with women who are like-minded as you then create a sort of solid plan to eventually leave your 9 to 5 and into the alternative income building strategies.
So good. Rebecca, I feel like I could talk to you for about 5 hours, and I want to be respectful of the time. 5 days, 5 weeks. I mean, we have so much in common and think so alike. It's phenomenal. What I want to do is move to the lightning round because I do want to be respectful of your time. And so I'm going to ask you some questions and ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind. First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Oh, that is so hard. Okay, Paris. Paris, because I absolutely fell in love with it when I went there back in March. And I think it's a place I want to vacation often. Mm-hmm.
You know what I was surprised when I went to Paris? What I was surprised by, I don't quite know what I was thinking. I was thinking on every corner I was going to get cheesecake and pastries, and there was going to be French food everywhere, which there was. But you know what I was surprised by is how many different cultural cuisines there were in Paris. The food was phenomenal, and we didn't just eat French food.
Yes, yes. And I love the culture there. Like lunch starts at 12 all the way to like 5, which is awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's so great. Okay, what's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
Bali.
I've heard that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that's been on my list for a long time. And also because of sort of the whole, you go on these retreats, which are very holistic. That's an experience I would definitely want to have and just understand these alternative sort of therapies that are different to sort of modern science and therapies that are more in the developed economies.
So good. So good. Well, if you go to Bali and you find a retreat there, you let me know.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And then I'll come to Stacey's retreat. That's also something that I want to do.
I love it. Next question. What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out in the world of short-term rentals?
You don't have to have it all figured out. The answers come as you go on. Trust yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. And I think, again, so many times we as women are waiting to have it all figured out. And so I see this happening time and time again where folks are fearing making a mistake. And so they stay stalled in their comfort zone or, stay stalled where they are because of the fact that they haven't gotten it all figured out. And what I say to that is just start. Just start. And to your point earlier, having mentors, having the ability to be in rooms with other women who are successful in this arena, it's so incredibly helpful to not only learn what to do, but to learn their mistakes and what not to do. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's also something that as women, I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's me and maybe it's just my way of thinking, but I feel like as women, we have a lot more to learn than men who are, I think they can be very open about like their mistakes, but then it's seen like heroic. But then when it comes to us as women, it's seen like failure. And I think it's something for us to lean into more. And the more we share also, the more others learn. And we also learn from sharing, I believe.
Absolutely. 100%. I will tell you throughout my journey, I have taught and interviewed people, and I have had, I feel like, such a holistic journey in myself of just being in the surroundings of other people where I'm learning and sharing at the exact same time. And so it's extremely fulfilling, right? Because I learn something each and every day. And at the same time, I have the opportunity to impact someone else's life every day. And there's something very special about that. I'm imagining you feel the same way in your journey.
Yes, yes. I think for me, interestingly enough, you don't realize or you don't foresee it, but I think that's been the most fulfilling thing about the businesses that I run, the people I impact, the people who I get to employ, even in my short-term rental business, and the families. Like the ripple effects are just so huge and so heartwarming. Obviously, we want to have the financial freedom, but I think impact is very difficult to explain in words how that feels and the fulfillment you get from it.
Amen to that. Okay, next question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Wow. Never compare yourself with others. Stay in your own lane. You are on your own journey.
Amen. Somebody would have given me that advice about 20 years ago. Oh, it's so good and so important.
Yeah. That's probably one of my biggest, if not my biggest life learning lesson. I think especially when you're that corporate world where it's all about go, 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 you're constantly competing with other people. That's just how the system is built. And to decondition yourself from that, I've done a lot of work to do that.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? You talk about competition, the way that I look at it, and I don't really think about being in competition with myself on a day-to-day basis, but I actually stand competitively. And when I'm actually entering a competition, I do look at it as I'm only competing against myself. Everyone else, I can control their performances. I can only control what I do, right? And it's actually very freeing when you look at it that way, right?
Yes, like you just believe and it gets to be your truth and your reality that you're a category of one and that you're the only person that matters. Love that. And I didn't know you're a singer. Interesting.
Yeah, so it's been a hobby of mine for years, but I sing in an a cappella quartet and we compete internationally, and it's so fun.
Wow.
So fun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay, one last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
That's a really hard question when you are a mother and you have a partner. Today, particularly, I would say my partner, my husband, he's been one of my most supportive pillars in all the different evolutions of my life. When I made the decision to leave my corporate job, it becomes 10 times harder when you don't have a supportive spouse. And my heart goes out to women who are doing motherhood alone, like single parenting. So yeah, my appreciation goes to him. He helped me put the kids to sleep today. And that's how I've been able to be on this conversation with you, Stacey. So yeah.
Well, give your hubby a hug from us and tell him we appreciate him and allowing you the opportunity to spend some time with us. Rebecca, if folks want to learn more about you or how you might be able to support them, what's the best place for them to find you online?
Yes, that is a good question. Well, I do have a free podcast. It's a free private podcast. It's called The New Economy, and it really goes to the question you asked me earlier. For the woman who's thinking of leaving their 9 to 5, but she's just not sure what's possible. Maybe she's heard that she needs to start a business, which is absolutely not true. There's so many ways to create income, just like the short-term rental income strategies that we've talked about. The new economy is really where she can start to decondition her past thinking and start to think differently about her income earning capacity, and also start to exit the paycheck dependency and build that wealth capacity from within, so that she can then confidently build that corporate exit plan. So I'll share the link with you. It's on therichwomanrevolution.com/podcast, but I will share the link with you after this for everyone to tap into.
Perfect. We will drop it in the show notes. So anyone watching or listening, you can go to the show notes and click right over. Rebecca, it has been so wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I had so much fun and I look forward to connecting with you in person one day.
Me too, girl. Me too. Now, before you go, I've got something powerful to share with you. If you're an STR host who's tired of flying blind and ready to run your business on autopilot, you need to be in my upcoming Data to Dollars challenge. In just 3 days, I'm going to show you how to stop guessing and start growing by turning your own data and numbers into clear, confident decisions. You're going to learn exactly what to track, how to build your own custom dashboard, and yes, you can do it even if you're not techie. Why? Because I'm actually going to give you my own template. And the other thing that you're going to learn is how to use your data to drive next level results in your business. Head on over to stacystjohn.com/data, TO dollars, data to dollars, and I will see you on the inside.